Hi and welcome back to the Positive Prepper. How's everybody doing today? As you can see, it's greening up behind me really good. Yay. Trilliums are out like crazy. So this is one of my favorite times of the year right now in the spring, heading towards summer. And just a side note, both my dogs are out here with me and one of my cats, so you might see them prancing around in the background. Um, so I'm going to talk about two things today. One is going to be don't judge a book by its cover, and that specifically has to do with preppers. And the second thing is just to give you some more help trying to figure out where you are going to bug out in an SHTF, because it's super important that you have that plan, okay? So for the first part, someone told me once that I don't look like a prepper. I don't know what preppers are supposed to look like. I don't. I know that if you know the movie Gone with the Wind, I get my strength from the red earth of Terra. I love planting and building and taking care of and gathering everything from our property and working in the dirt, and there pretty much isn't anything that I won't do. I can shoot any gun that's put in my hand. I will admit I'm not a big hunter. That just is something that I can't do. But if my family was starving and needed food, I would not hesitate to go get food for my family. And if you try to break into my home, I'm also not going to hesitate to defend. But like I said, I can shoot any gun. I'm a big trap shooter. So I don't know what preppers look like, but I will tell you that all of the great resources on YouTube and other places, every prepper that does this type of thing on media has their own way of delivering the information. I choose to be more conversational. I am not going to use like awesome graphics and video clips and stuff like that. You know, I maybe eventually I'll learn how to do all of that stuff. I have someone that's trying to help me learn it. But right now, for me, it's just having that conversation, okay? You have to find the, the prepper source, if you will, that fits your personality, fits the way that you learn the best. There are a lot of them out there that are completely hands-on, and that's awesome. There are some out there that use, you know, really awesome graphics and are able to tell a really good story with that. And then there's other ones out there like me that just want to have this conversation. And so, you know, if you go to places like MD Creekmore, Canadian Prepper, Little Urban Prepper, Prepper Nation, Magic Prepper, Pinball Preparedness, they're all fantastic. Okay, everybody that I know that I've watched, they give out great information. It's just that we all have our different ways of delivering that information. So if a conversational video is not right for you, find one that's got a little bit more creativity or you know, what you see is what you get from me. I would rather just have a calm conversation than get caught up in any hype or props and stuff like that. So just, and the other piece to this as well is you'd be surprised how many people out there are actually preppers that probably live right by you. An example I can give of this real quick, I worked for the census last fall, and, doing my census route, and I came across in my cases for that day, I had, it was a pretty wealthy neighborhood, right? A suburb. And, I'm just doing my thing. And I went to this one case, this one house, and knocked on the door and, hi, I'm from the census. And she began to just spill out. And of course, this was last fall, so this was right before the November election. And she just began to spill out all of her concerns about where the country would go if President Trump was not reelected. And she didn't give a lot of specifics like where or anything like that, but it was, and she just started talking about this. I didn't bring it up, and they had a bug out location. They had everything planned. They'd been stockpiling food. This was somebody, if I had to say what a prepper looked like, she did not fit that bill at all. And that was kind of a wake-up call to me that you don't know how many preppers are out there. And we all know that the number of preppers has increased substantially within the last year, especially. And so don't be afraid to start having those conversations, even with people that you think, especially if you're looking for a mag, start talking about some of that stuff, because you will be surprised how many people out there are actually preppers and how easy it actually is to find people that are like-minded and just waiting to talk to people about prepping and their experiences and your opinion about everything. So that's just kind of a side note on that. So my second thing, and I've done a bug out video before, so if you haven't watched that one yet, watch that one yet. And I'm sorry if I'm moving around a little bit. The mosquitoes are a little bit worse than I thought. So if you haven't watched the video that I did about bugging out, please go back and watch that video. But here's a couple things I just want you to keep in mind. An SHTF event could happen at any time. Are you ready? Okay? If you are planning on bunkering in, and you've got your home defense all up, and you've got all your prepping supplies, you've got your water catchments built, you got your solar panels. If you are ready to go, that's great. But what are you going to do if that location gets overrun? You have to have a second location that you and your family or your mag group can get to. So here's just a couple of things that I want you to keep in mind again, and I apologize if some of this is repetitive, but it's so super important because there are so many things happening out in the world right now. We don't know which way anything's going to come from or what it's going to look like. We need to be prepared no matter what. So one of the things you want to think about is resources, long-term resources. So things like a water source, a food, what are the food resources? Is there a lot of deer, squirrels, grouse, partridges, turkeys, fish, that type of thing. Is it remote enough? so that if you have a campfire going to cook your food, you know, is somebody going to be able to see that fire or smell the smoke or hear you talking, right? Is it defendable? So some of the best places are places where you can actually dig in, like into a hillside or in a cave or a remote part, maybe alongside of a lake or a trout stream, right? Because those are food sources, they're water sources. But it has to be defendable. If you're just out in the middle of the woods, it's going to be really hard, especially if it's thick woods, to see anybody coming and that might want to take your supplies. And again, something else to consider is how are you going to get there if you have small children or people that are less ambulatory? Okay, so you have to keep that in mind. So try to get off the beaten path. So if you have to drive around, you know, if you already live out in the country, you know, walk back in your woods for an hour, let's just say. I butt right up next to state-owned land. So, you know, someone like me could walk back an hour into the state-owned land, but you also have to keep in mind that a lot of people that don't have a secondary bug out location is probably going to have that same thought. Okay? Even though you guys are headed in the same direction to the same kind of location, doesn't mean that you should trust everybody that you come across, especially with your preps, your children, etc. Okay? So keep that in mind. Stay off the beaten path. Don't walk down a highway. I know that's obvious, but don't walk down a highway. Don't walk down a country road. Get off the beaten path and try to find some place that you can really hunker down in and build your shelter and have your food and water sources. Another thing to consider might be things like old abandoned buildings. You know, I live out in the country. Yeah, there's abandoned homes, but I don't think I would trust myself to walk in them because they're really falling down. But if you can find a place like an old schoolhouse or even something with a brick foundation that's left, you know, that brick foundation would give you some cover and protection. So these are just some things to think about, but what I want to challenge you guys to do is really start thinking about where you would go if. Okay, you know, everybody does tornado drills, you know, well, we do up here, so, you know, our family knows where to go in the case of a tornado. We know if, you know, if we're all spread out and there's a tornado coming, we all know where to meet. Okay? You have to do the same thing with your bugging out so that everybody knows where to meet. How are you going to get there? Remember, if you're using a car or a four-wheeler or something like that, people are going to hear those motors. Same with boats on a lake or on a river. People are going to hear those motors and they're going to follow that sound if they're desperate. If we get into a massive food shortage, they're going to come looking for the people that are bugging out because they know that you have food. Okay? So start thinking about that. I challenge you to find that location. Okay? That's pretty much all I wanted to say in this video. You know, the weather's great, at least up where we are. Get out there. Start finding that place. Start talking to people, even though you don't maybe think that they would be a prepper. Don't judge a book by its cover because you never know. There's a lot more people out there like us than you think. You guys have an amazing day today. Thanks for watching The Positive Prepper. God bless.